one's coming out a little bit late. I actually tried to record this one outside yesterday, but my internet connection was being spotty and I didn't have access to a room to record in. So we're doing it today and it's all good. So anyways, I appreciate y'all. When I was looking or going over my notes and thinking about what I wanted to talk about this week, I came across a cool prompt on X, and basically the prompt was, or had to do with the fact that ChatGPT now has more memory of all of the chats that you have engaged with it on. And so I use ChatGPT a decent amount. Just one, I actually have it manage my weekly to-do list to help me keep track of stuff and remind me to do things. So I can say, hey, on these days, I want to make sure I do this, but if I forget to add it to my to-do list, it still is there. So, basically I just use it to manage myself, which is really nice. And I use it with formatting and that sort of thing. So it has access to a lot of what I've been working on. And the prompt on X that I saw was based off of everything that I've divulged to ChatGPT, point out my top 5 blind spots. And so I was curious as to what what ChatGPT would say my blind spots were. And so here's what they are. Top 5 for me are: number 1, you do everything and it might be too much. You're a one-man performance engine, personal trainer, podcaster, marketer, writer, designer, business owner, fundraiser, family man, but high output doesn't always equal high impact. The blind spot being you really delegate or automate even when you could. This creates bottlenecks and burnout, especially with your family and job taking bigger slices of your time pie. As far as what I can explore is, what could you let go or outsource to buy back more high leverage time? That's totally fair. I don't know if I would say I'm a writer. I don't know where it's getting that. I guess if you've been following the show, I've been working on an ebook that is more or less the exact same thing I did for my pump and run training, but less focus on the bench press and more just overall fitness. So instead of 3 days of chest press plus accessory exercises, it's a chest press day with accessories, a squat day with accessories, and then a deadlift day with accessories. And then the stuff I did for the run portion is the exact same stuff I did for the pump and run. So it's a very niche ebook, basically like, hey, if you want to train like Jake, here's how to do it. And I did write, I guess, like the intro and kind of explain and define certain things, but I don't know if I would say that I am a writer. Regardless, for the most part, that's pretty true. My wife offered to take on some of some of my responsibilities. Her and I have to talk about what those things could be, that sort of thing. Really, I think what I've been doing, though, since March of last year is just biting off. It's not more than I can chew because I've been chewing it and I've been doing it, but I think I'm spreading myself too thin, so I can't really. My output is like I said, my output is not matching my input. I'm doing a lot of things slowly and not as well as I probably could be doing them. So that is super fair. Ideally, I'll finish the ebook. I'll finish fundraising, and we're going to talk about what I'm fundraising for. If you've been following the show since last year, you're going to know, but we'll talk more about that later. But once I finish the ebook, which I'm going to try and finish hopefully by April 28th, but at the latest May 9th, and I'll explain why later. And then I'll finish fundraising. I'll finish the trip that I'm going to do for the fundraising. And then it'll just be work, workout plans, podcast. Those are the 3 things I'll do. And that's it. And that's plenty. That's definitely plenty. I think 3 things: a main job and more or less 2 side hustles that are reasonably related will be good. My second blind spot is content creation versus audience connection. It says my content is legit, which I don't know how it could know because it doesn't watch it or listen to it, but whatever. Valuable, personal, and varied, which is true. But your growth on Instagram and podcast engagement haven't matched your output. This is also true. It says the blind spot, you focus heavily on content production, but less on distribution strategy, engagement systems, or refining your niche voice for the audience you most want. And so it's saying that I should explore who my ideal follower or listener is and where do they already hang out online. This is super true. I have been dragging my feet on growing the channel. I guess channels, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. And it's not because I don't want more people to listen, but it's just the grind, the administrative grind that is following people and trying to figure out who to follow to grow the channel, that sort of thing. Is just annoying and I don't want to do it. And I've also started to increase my personal Instagram output to help increase my workout plan clientele, the folks I make workout plans for. So I'm starting to increase output there. And I mean, growing the channel is probably just going to mean, especially on Instagram, following people who engage on Instagram channels and podcasts that are similar to mine, but different, and just hope they follow back and grow the audience that way. But I just haven't done it yet. And it's something I've been talking about for a year, literally. So it's not wrong. I do need to focus more on distribution. But again, that's going to have to be on the back burner probably till the end of May. And then we can really start trying to grow the channel. If you folks listening just could engage with my Instagram stuff as much as possible on Fowler and Friends, throw the podcast on a drive with a friend, that sort of thing. If you guys could help me grow the show, that would be awesome. Word of mouth is huge. So, I could really use your help there. My third blind spot is strategy without simplicity. You're incredibly thoughtful when planning, example, workouts, pricing, marketing, but that can lead to complexity creep. You map things in 12-week blocks. This is referring to my ebook. 7-year splits, tiered pricing, that's with regards to my workout plans, multi-platform promo, which is awesome until it's overwhelming, which it is. Blind spot, you sometimes overbuild before testing what works as a simple scale, what to explore, what's one next simple offer or post that can move the needle today. That's very true. I've been trying to focus more on posting consistently on my personal Instagram and on Fowler and Friends. And so I am trying to do that more. And this will kind of lead into, it looks like, maybe not, but I've been really trying to make this ebook solid because I don't really expect too many people to buy it. Well, that's not true. I hope people buy it, but it's more so a marketing tool to say, hey, for myself to say, hey, I did this pump and run. I placed second. I improved my time from when I started training from like a 1912 or 1914, I can't remember, and ended with a 1646 after 12 weeks of training. So knocked off about 2.5 minutes, and also was able to get stronger in the process to be able to knock out 30 reps of my body weight on the bench. Here's what I did. Here's how you can do a very similar version of that. And it's basically just putting proof in the concept that, I am super legit at what I do. Not only do I make high quality plans, but I can execute them myself. And if you want to train like I do, here's how to do it. And then, maybe in a year or two, it'll really gain traction, or maybe it'll blow up right away. You just don't know. But I have been really wanting to make sure this looks good. And I probably have like 3 versions of it. And I don't have an eye for, so that's not true. I have an eye for aesthetics, but I don't know how to produce. And so I was actually working last night with my buddy Sean, trying to help me get this ebook formatted and the color scheme correct. And he gave me some good tidbits, and he's also going to help me a bit. So Once that is done, I will have something to put out, and then I can iterate as I go. So get feedback on the workout plan and then make small changes, and maybe just kind of re-release it and that sort of thing. So that is the plan, but they're not wrong with, the complexity creep sneaking in there. Number 4, you lead with versatility, but could brand with clarity. Your superpower is being able to do it all. Hybrid coach, storyteller, endurance athlete, creative. That versatility can also make your brand identity fuzzy, blind spot. You think you're being relatable when in reality your core brand promise gets diluted. What to explore? If Fowler-Fit were just one sentence or feeling, what would it be? And so, again, I don't think it's necessarily wrong here. I kind of have two things going on. It's like Fowler and Friends and Fowler-Fit, because it's like I am a personal trainer, nutrition coach, corrective exercise specialist, and I do make workout plans, and I am trying to do more of that. And then I'm also a podcaster, and I use the podcast to promote myself as a personal trainer as well. But then I also use the podcast to do whatever I want, which is the goal. But I could see how that could be a hindrance in growing the audience. But the problem with that is I just want to do whatever I want. And, I feel like when I do these solo shows, they're kind of more focused. I talk about something with regards to, how I'm training. I usually talk about something Marvel. And, there's a handful of other things I feel like I've been hitting on the Jake Fowler show. But I think, and I'm not, I definitely don't think I'm being relatable. At least that's not, my goal isn't necessarily to be relatable. It's more so just to have a show and have fun doing it. And so, and if it's relatable, great. And if it's not, that's okay, because I'm not you, but I am trying to be better, which like most people are. And that, says, if in just one sentence you could describe Fowler-Fit, Fowler-Fit is just personalized workouts. Or I guess Fowler-Fit for me is hybrid training and personalized workouts, and that's it. I mean, I run and I lift and I row, and so I can make you a workout plan that incorporates those elements, or all three, or whatever. It's pretty straightforward. And then Fowler and Friends, I mean, the goal from day one has been to just build a community of people who are striving upward and check in on them periodically. And I feel like that's pretty much what I've done so far, is do that. And we have had some reoccurring guests, and you guys have also been tracking my progress and see that I am trying to practice what I preach. And so, I feel like that's pretty straightforward. But I do a lot of things, and I am sort of a jack of all trades, master of none sort of person. So that's just kind of how it is. And so that could be just an ongoing blind spot, or that could just be, hopefully eventually that just becomes a strength of the show, as we continue to get more and more dialed in. The last thing that said a blind spot was for me was reflection over celebration. It says, I'm introspective and constantly leveling up physically, mentally, professionally, but in your drive to improve, you tend to undervalue what you've already built. So it says you skip wins too fast, even massive ones like launching a business, hitting a 300-pound bench, and I tend to or ranking second in a hybrid competition. I feel like I've been trying to ride the pump and run as much as possible. In fact, I'd like to continue to ride that train as long as I can. What to explore? You could look to pause and promote your wins with as much energy as you plan your next pivot. What would it look like to pause and promote your wins with as much energy as you plan your next pivot? I feel like it's pretty common for a lot of people, not just me. It can be hard to celebrate yourself, not because, I personally, I am very happy with how things have been going, but I don't want to over celebrate, if that makes sense. I don't want to, it's kind of like mental masturbation. I don't want to jack myself off for lack of a better phrase, when, it's just, I said I was going to do a thing, and I do it, and I feel good about that. And, I talk about it with my wife and my family members, and I even talk about it here. So, you guys can share in the progress, but at the end of the day, like, you know, I don't want to be like, it's not cocky. Cocky's not the word. I guess I just don't want to be, yeah, I don't know. I just don't want to be over the top with these celebrations and that sort of thing. But I guess I could be. It says pause and promote your wins with as much energy as you plan your next pivot. I guess I just don't, at the moment I don't value that, and maybe I should. I guess people, that could be something that people who are following the journey want to follow. So I don't know. Yeah, I think as far as like a top, as far as ChatGPT is concerned, I feel like that's fairly on the nose as far as blind spots go. And that was a nice reflection, and I appreciate all of you for joining in on that. It's good. I think it's good to reflect and think about what you could be doing better. I think, I guess, to ChatGPT's point, it is good to celebrate what you have done. This past year has been nothing short of crazy. We had a kid in January of 25, and then March of 2025 was also crazy because I started fundraising for Sebastian Strong, which we're going to talk about. I started doing that last year. We're fixing up our Airbnb. We launched that in April. In May, I did this Kayaking the Keys for Hope for Sebastian Strong. In July, I was going for a new job, which didn't work out. And then I was job searching basically end of summer, all of fall through winter. And, we had the Airbnb the whole time. I started the podcast last March. I've been doing that the whole time. We got another kiddo on the way. So, this last year has definitely been the busiest, most involved year of my entire life. And, something that I realized yesterday was that, maybe it was 2 days ago, but, I'm sort of between jobs right now. I start a new job for Ohio Health on April 28th as an exercise physiologist, which I'm really excited about. The month of April has kind of been this in-between month where I'm not, it's not that I'm not working, because I've actually been working a lot, but it's all been on Fowler-Fit and Fowler and Friends stuff. And I had this moment the other day, which was really cool, where I realized that, that's sort of the goal. The goal at the end is just to be able to work for myself in whatever my endeavors are at the time. And so this past month, I've got to live that, but it's still been hectic. It's still been busy. You still got kids. I still got to, all these things take time. And I've really, really been enjoying that. But I realized that, my definition of success, or making it, quote unquote, is happening right now. Now I am going to go back to work for Ohio Health, and I'm actually very excited about that. That is like a huge win for me, because my major is outdoor rec and ed. I've got 3 different certifications through the National Academy of Sports Medicine and personal training, nutrition coaching. I was at Orange Theory for a long time, and so I've built up this awesome experience or awesome amount of experience. And then all the stuff I've been working on with Fowler-Fit and Fowler and Friends, like all of this is awesome. And I feel like I'm very good at what I do, but I didn't major in athletic training or exercise science or that sort of thing. And so this job, for me at least, represents being able to escape my major. Not that I am ashamed of my major. In outdoor rec and ed, it was awesome. It taught me a lot about leadership, and it got me out of OU in the best way possible. But I feel like I've been able to break a bit of a glass ceiling, if that makes sense. And I am thrilled for that. But anyways, this month of March, or I guess this month of April, the month of April has been, I've just been able to work on exactly what I want to. It is work, and I am working every day, more or less, but I have been able to do exactly what I want. And it was nice to have that realization, because I feel like a lot of times, at least for me, I get caught up in, I'm not where I should be financially. Oh, I'm not doing this. Oh, well, it's kind of like what I'm not doing. And part of that, what I'm not doing, is the drive. It's like, okay, I'm not where I want to be, so I'm motivated to get there. And so I am grateful for that. But I guess the other day I was very grateful to have the realization that I'm doing exactly what I want to be doing. I haven't met all my goals yet, but what I've done this year and what I've done this month is exactly what I want to be doing in 5 years, in 10 years. And, hopefully it's more lucrative in 5, 10 years. But for now, like, the actual doing is exactly what I want to be doing. And I'm very grateful. So it was nice to sort of have that realization the other day. Um, with regards to, switching gears, I took the month of March after the pump and run to kind of relax, not really be as structured in the gym. I took a week off of lifting and really doing anything after the pump and run ended. And then I started lifting again. And that second week after, I was able to hit my 300-pound bench press, which was awesome. That was something I was really trying to hit the summer of 2021. I was working on that summer of 2021. And I think I hit 290 and I went for 305 and I didn't get it. And so I can't remember if I got 290 or 295, but I think it was 290. And I was working on it for so long. And then I was also training jujitsu at the time. And my right elbow was just, I was lifting heavy 2 times a week and then doing jujitsu 3 times a week. And I just was starting to break my elbow down. So I had to chill, but it was cool. It was just it felt awesome to hit the 300-pound bench as merely a side effect of what I did for the pump and run. So to hit the best 5K of my life, while also hitting the 30 reps of my body weight, and then a week later, or maybe 10 days later, to hit a 1 rep max PR on the bench press, it doesn't really get any better than that. So I was doing some sort of unstructured training, more or less, and then about 3 weeks ago, or 2 weeks ago, because this is the third week, I designed a 6-week program for myself. And this program has a handful of focuses. One, I'm trying to increase my squat. I'm doing 3 sets of 20 from my squats when I do them. And I'm trying to increase weight, and very incrementally, but still always hit 20 reps. The reason I'm kind of doing that sort of muscular endurance training is because as a cross country kid, we didn't really lift that much, and we didn't have a squat rack growing up in my house. And so I did not really squat too much. I squatted a handful of times in college, but never really as a focus of anything that I did. And so even though I've had all this personal training experience, and, I'm fit and all that stuff, my squat isn't very good. And I had tweaked my low back rather aggressively like 4 or 5 years ago. And then after I tweaked it, for whatever reason, I wanted to do a squat test like a few days later, and then I retweaked it. And that low back injury has been something I've been rehabbing and on and off tweak every few months, except for, I think now it's probably been over 2 years since I've tweaked it, because I've gotten better at figuring out what works and what doesn't. And basically, compared to the rest of my body, I think I just had weak glutes. And so I've just been trying to introduce lightweight squats into my workout routine. And I really started to do that while I was pump and run training. And now, but I would skip it if I had to switch my days up, and it would ruin, like a running workout, because I had to prioritize that. But now that's not the case. And so, I'm really trying to build my glutes up, and, split squats and regular squats are just 2 of the best ways to do that. And so, I have had basically no low back pain in ages. But it's gotten even better since I started doing split squats and then eventually squats. And so that's one thing I'm working on. I'm working on getting used to deadlifting again. I'd like to get my deadlift to 400 pounds. I don't know what my 1 rep max is for deadlift. I haven't tested it in a while, but when I was doing heavy deadlifts a couple of years ago, I was doing 5 sets of 5 with more or less, I think it was 5 sets of 5, but I was doing 365 pounds. And so I think I'll hit that 400-pound deadlift, but we won't start working on strength stuff until after I do the Kayaking the Keys for Hope. And so those are my 2 lifting focuses. Oh, and getting my pull-up strength back again. Yeah, I love doing pull-ups. I think pull-ups are awesome. I think there's a lot of functionality to be able to pull yourself up. And so yeah, I've been working on that again. Bodyweight pull-ups, weighted pull-ups. I took 3 months off of pull-ups when I was doing pump and run training. So it's good to get back into that. I'm also rowing more as prep for the Kayaking the Keys for Hope, which I'll be doing in May. We'll talk about Sebastian Strong here in a little bit, but yeah, so I've been doing a HIIT row day, and I'm trying to make it as close to true HIIT as possible. So like 85 to 95% of my max heart rate, and I'm increasing week after week the amount of time I'm trying to spend in that zone. And so I start off just with basically a 2-minute all out, trying to get my heart rate up quickly and then maintain. And then last week was a 2.5 minute, and I do that for 4 minutes, 4 rounds. So 2 minutes on, 2 minutes off, 4 rounds. And then last week it was 2.5 minutes on, 2.5 minutes off for 4 rounds. This week, probably Thursday, it'll be 3 minutes on, 3 minutes off for 4 rounds. And so that has been annoying because that sucks. And then the other day, I've been just working on like zone 2 endurance rows. Zone 2, I just mean heart rate zone 2. And because that's typically what you're in when you're doing the kayaking. And I did 10,000 meters the first week, 12,000 meters the second week. And then this morning I did 14,000 meters, although I did stop for about 1.5 minutes to switch a load of laundry. So it wasn't straight, but the other 2 have been straight through. And yeah. And so, yeah, we'll just say trying to improve squat form and endurance, muscular endurance in the glutes, and increase deadlift strength while also increasing pull-up strength and getting my conditioning ready for the Kayaking the Keys for Hope, which I did last year. And so moving on to that, we got our Sebastian Strong Foundation hat on. We got our Kayaking the Keys for Hope shirt on as well. For those of you who have been following the show, the 3rd podcast I did for Fowler and Friends was with my friends Lauren and Diego, who are now engaged. Shout out to them. But they came on the pod to talk about the Sebastian Strong organization. And so I highly recommend you go and watch episode 3. I hope to do a handful of other podcasts. We'll see how it shakes out. I got to talk to Oscar, the owner. I guess it's a nonprofit, so is that the right word? CEO, the founder. That's better. The founder of the Sebastian Strong organization. So the Sebastian Strong organization, for those who don't know, is an organization that helps to fundraise money, or that fundraises money to find safer, or to fund research to help find safer, less toxic forms of treatment for kids with cancer. And the truth of the matter, is that Oscar lost his son Sebastian 8 years ago to cancer, and somewhat helped along by the treatments that just made him so weak that he couldn't even walk by the end. And it was just soul crushing and heartbreaking to find that at the time there had been no new treatments developed for kids with pediatric cancer in 40 years. Just absolutely devastating to learn that your child is getting 40-year-old treatment, and it's toxic, and it's just as harmful as as anything. And so thus the organization was born. And, I was talking to my dad this weekend about just the respect that I have for Oscar. I feel like if you lose a kid to cancer, it can be hard to confront that. And Oscar confronts it daily with this organization because he's involved in all these other families who are going through the same thing. And so he faces that problem, that dilemma day in and day out. And that takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of willpower to just be immersed in that all the time. And, my buddy Diego, he was Sebastian's best friend. And, Diego has chosen to keep Sebastian's memory alive. And he's been a part of this organization and does the Kayaking the Keys for Hope. And I just look up and respect them both so much. And so 2 years ago, when Diego and I were talking on the phone, Diego gave me a call while he was paddling just out in the middle of the ocean. And he was doing the Kayaking the Keys for Hope kayak, which is a 110-mile kayak over 5 days from Key Largo to Key West. And he called me and he just was telling me that, he takes this time to call people who he cares about and just tell them that he cares about them. And, he's also calling people to do some fundraising, obviously, because that's the point. We all, the people who are a part of this organization, we all care about each other and we really had a good time and got along. But at the end of the day, the goal is to fundraise as much money as possible. And so that's what we did last year. That's what we're going to do this year. But Diego called me and just told me, how he felt about me as a friend. And, we had only been friends at that time for not even 2 years. I mean, actually, we'd only met a year previously, a year and a month. So we hadn't been friends that long, but we had hung out and spent some time together. And him and I got to, we invited him and Lauren over. And, while my wife and Lauren were hanging out, Diego and I hung out and just kind of talked about life and got to know each other a little bit more. And, we realized, okay, like this is a homie right here. And so that's kind of what we talked about when he called me. And at that time on the phone, I told him, hey, next year I'm going to do it. And he was probably, stoked, but I think people often say that they're going to do this kayak. And I think when they say it, they mean it. People want to make a difference, but it is a sacrifice. You do have to, you are taking time. It's not a vacation, even though Key Largo, the Florida Keys are beautiful. You are fundraising. You are waking up early. You are kayaking 20 plus miles a day, and you're fundraising while you do it. And, it's a grind and it's hard. And I think, and then you also got to take time off of work for it. And I think, at the end of the day, sometimes it's just a lot more than people realize. And I don't know. I'm not actually sure what Diego thought when I told him. I don't know if he probably believed that I believed myself, but was probably waiting to see how it all panned out. But I kept bothering him and bothering him and bothering him about it. And he realized, okay, Jake means what he says, and he wants to be a part of this. And, I got to meet with Oscar and the other paddlers, and, the rest is history. I personally committed to and raised $10,000 last year. The organization committed to $250,000 for the Kayaking the Keys for Hope event, and we did over $270,000. So we knocked our goal out of the park. And this year, the goal is $300,000, and I have no doubt that we're going to get there. And so I'm going to raise the $10,000 again. I'd like to beat what I did last year. So I might even see if I can raise the goal. But yeah, so this past Friday, so I'm recording this on Tuesday the 15th. This past Friday, I got my list of folks that donated last year. So for those of you that did donate, thank you so much. I'm going to be reaching out to all of you again for another donation. We have done some amazing fundraising. We have some of the research that we have provided has gone to has gone to cause new treatments, and that's great. And I guess a better way to phrase it is some of the research has led to new treatments. That's better. And that's what we're going for, but it's not over. There are still kids who need our help. There's still a lot more research that needs to be done. And so the fight is far from over. And so, yeah, I'm going to be reaching out to all of you again. I appreciate your support, but I'm going to ask for it again this year. And we're going to make it happen. And so, I got to talk to Oscar and see about what kind of pods he wants to do, if it's going to make sense for us to do a pod, because I know he's got some ideas for some we talked about. But if it doesn't work out, I'm definitely going to have a couple of the other paddlers on before we do it, or maybe after, but probably before. Before actually makes a lot more sense. And, we're going to talk about our experience last year and that sort of thing. And we'll go from there. But couldn't be more honored to be a part of this organization. Couldn't be more grateful to Oscar and Diego and the road crew. Shout out to the road crew. Couldn't be more grateful to my friend Lauren, and all she puts into this and her other endeavors. And couldn't be more grateful to my wife, who supported me last year and who is supporting me this year and allowing me to leave her, a pregnant woman, with our kiddo. Luckily, we've got support from her folks and my folks, but still, big deal. So yeah, Sebastian Strong, Kayaking the Keys for Hope 2025. It's going to be awesome. And I can't wait to see what this year brings. And we're going to raise more than $10,000. It's going to happen. So help me be a part of that, or help me achieve my goal there. Shifting gears again, tonight, April 15th, 2025, is the season finale of DareDevil Born Again on Disney Plus. At this point, if you don't know, we're big Marvel fans over here at Fowler and Friends, and by we I mean me, and my wife is too. Definitely more so now because of me, but yeah. So we've been watching that as it's come out, and boy, I'm gonna have to do like a spoiler review later. I talked about this on the last Jake Fowler show, but we watched all 3 seasons. Or no, I think we talked about it when I did the last pod with Tay. But we watched all 3 seasons of Daredevil and both seasons of Punisher as prep for this show, and it was just so jarring to watch the Netflix show and to really sort of believe that the Daredevil Born Again was basically going to kind of be a season 4 of the Netflix show, which it is and it isn't. It definitely picks up the plot points, but it's a lot less gritty. Like the first 3 seasons on Netflix, they have a smaller budget and it just looks gritty and dingy, and the lighting is dark, but it's also somehow well lit. Like, it's dark lighting, but accented in the right way. And it's just super gritty. There's almost no CGI, and the characters and the writing for the characters are just so good, and you just care about all of them, and they all have motivations that make sense. And so going into this new version that is more highly produced, it does have a higher budget. It just looks cleaner. They did shoot a lot in New York, which is awesome, and that adds a lot of character. And they do this sort of segment in each episode where there's like a reporter on the street, and she's sort of interviewing people on the street, and so you kind of get this perspective from the citizens of New York, and I think that's great. That's really cool, but it just looks like slightly more polished. There is CG in some of the Daredevil scenes, like in the comic books, he uses his billy club to sort of swing around like Spider-Man. It's not the exact same, but they are bringing that to life in the show, and I love that. Like, I like that they're fleshing out his full skill set / power set in this new version. It's not a new version, but in this new version of the show. But sometimes it just looks like CGI bullshit. and that's a bummer. It doesn't look as cool as it could, and I don't know why. Like, it's most of the CGI stuff takes place at night, so there's really no excuse for it to look bad because you don't have to light it all the way. But there's a couple things that happen in the show if you haven't watched it and you have watched the Netflix shows that is so absolutely jarring that you don't even know what is up and what is down anymore. And I have been wondering how they're going to pull off, like, what is the point of the season? It's been kind of hard to say what the full vision is, like where are they taking the season from episode 1 to the end. And last week, the second to last episode of the season, I feel like was that episode that really just tied everything together and addressed some things from the very beginning that I was so glad that it did. I'm trying to avoid spoilers here because I think you should go watch it. The season finale comes out at 9 p.m. tonight. So if you haven't been watching it, now you can, well, starting tonight/tomorrow, you can now binge the whole thing. And which I feel like is almost going to be helpful because episodically going week to week, you're like, where are they going with this? What is happening? And you get the answer in the second to last episode. It's building to something. I mean, without avoiding spoilers too much, something happens, or trying to avoid spoilers, something happens where Daredevil stops becoming Daredevil. And the general premise is New York seems to be worse off without it a year later. And things are happening in Matt Murdock's life where it's kind of pushing him to become Daredevil again, but he's resisting, he's resisting, he's resisting. And so that has been obvious that they're building up to him, coming back as Daredevil. And then he does. Obviously, that's what the show is. It's called Daredevil. So he's Daredevil again, and you kind of wondering, okay, now that he's Daredevil again, like, what are they building towards? And anyways, they figure it out, and it's awesome. And now I'm really excited. I'm hoping they stick the landing. They've already been filming season 2, and so I'm hoping that they have a satisfying conclusion to this season, and it leads right into the next season, and we're kind of firing on all cylinders here. And so that is my hope. And then we've got the Thunderbolts coming out. This movie is going to be on the cheaper end for Marvel. $150 million budget instead of the just ridiculous $250 to $300+ million movies they've been pushing out recently, and they just have not been doing well, and they're all being reshot. The Thunderbolts seem to be different. It's a cheaper movie, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to look good, but they don't have to pay a crazy cast. There also haven't really been the typical reshoots for this movie that we've been seeing the past like 5+ years from Marvel. And it seems like they're really trying to make this one super character driven, which is great. The characters are sort of like minor D-list characters. But that doesn't really, so were the Guardians of the Galaxy when that movie came out. So I don't really care that the characters aren't super well known. I just want them to be cool. And if it's good, then people will go see it. And so I think this could be a sleeper hit for Marvel. It's been testing well. And so it's coming out May 2nd. I mean, I'm obviously going to go see it. I really hope it's good, because if it's not, then you just have Fantastic Four in July. And that, it basically has to be good, because if it's not good, then Doomsday, which comes out May 26th, is just going to be totally and absolutely screwed. And nobody wants that. Least of all me. Can you imagine a bad Avengers movie? I mean, there would be absolutely nothing worse than that from a pop culture standpoint, in my opinion. So I'm really praying that Marvel gets their shit together for this Thunderbolts movie. I hope it does well. Like, if it does $500 million against a $150 million budget, and then whatever they do for marketing, I think that'd be great. I think even if it did $400 million, that would be awesome for it. So I really want this movie to succeed because it's a lead up movie to Avengers Doomsday, and after Captain America Brave New World, which was just it wasn't even mid, it was below mid. It wasn't terrible, but definitely wasn't great. Definitely lower tier Marvel. Um, we just really need some wins on that end. It won't surprise anyone that I have ranked every single piece of Marvel Cinematic Universe content from 1 to 47. And this new Captain America movie was number 37. You know, definitely not great. It is not the bottom 10, but it is the bottom 11. So, you know, I would really like this Thunderbolts movie to be like in the top half in terms of my ranking. That would be great. I would really love that for them. So, fingers crossed. If you haven't watched Daredevil, I would say it is totally worth it. If you haven't watched the Netflix shows, you're actually probably going to enjoy it off the rip more so than I did, because some of the things that happen in the first episode really have to do with some of the characters in the first 3 seasons. And so if you haven't seen those, what happened, the stuff that happens in the beginning, you're going to be like, oh, okay. Like it's just not going to matter as much. Whereas like the first 7 minutes of that show, my wife and I's jaws were on the floor. There are 2 things that happened that were so absolutely crazy that I was just like, what is this show even going to be? I was shook for at least 3 weeks, shook for 3 weeks about this Daredevil. But yeah, so go check it out if you haven't. It's got my seal of approval, at least for now. We'll see. Hopefully, if they stick the landing tonight, then it will definitely have my seal of approval. Last thing I wanted to talk about, and then we'll sort of wrap this up. I am, let's see, 36 hours was like 6:30, 30. So 5 plus 36 is 41. I am about 41 hours into a fast. So I haven't done a fast in a long time. And so what does a fast mean? This has been, so I've only been drinking water. That's not true. I've been having coffee. There is some calories in coffee, so you could argue that it's not a true fast, but it's like a negligible amount. Like it's not, you're going to burn through it in like 30 minutes, probably just existing. So I would argue that it doesn't really count. And I did have an electrolyte drink last night that had 10 calories in it. So I guess I've probably had about 60 calories, we'll say, in the past, what I say, 40 hours, 41 hours, whatever it is. So I still think that's a true fast. And I've done fast before. I used to do a 24-hour fast every Sunday before my wife and I moved to North Carolina, because we would have Sunday dinner at my mom's, and at my parents', and my mom always does it up real nice with like sort of an appetizer and then a delicious dinner and then a dessert after. And so it's part of the fast, for part of the reason I was doing that was just an exercise of willpower. You know, every week have that 24-hour fast. It's just like a time to kind of recenter and get ready for the week. But it's been a long time. The last time I did one was probably in North Carolina, and I don't remember how long it was for. I don't actually know how long the longest fast I've done is. I've definitely done 48 hours, which when I originally committed to doing this fast, I was only going to do 36, but I was feeling really good yesterday after the 24-hour mark, and I figured, I'll probably just do 48. And so we'll see. My wife wants to do pizza tonight when we watch Daredevil. And so I'll probably end up doing that. So we'll probably keep it at 48, but I wouldn't say no. I'm still feeling really good. And by the way, people do 7-day fasts. I wouldn't recommend that without talking to your doctor first, but you can fast. So like 3 days isn't too bad. I'm thinking about doing full 72, but we'll see. But anyways, I'm talking on the benefits of fasting and why I do it. So originally when I started getting into fasting, I started with the intermittent fasting or timed feeding. And basically what that is it's you have a window where you eat. And so a lot of times you'll hear 8 hours on, 16 hours off. And that's what I would do. So I would have an 8 hour window where I would try and get all my calories in. And I probably did this from age 24 until like 27 or 28. It was 28. So I probably did it about 4 years of intermittent fasting. I just enjoyed it. One of the benefits of doing that is you start to deplete your glycogen stores. So glycogen is just your sugar stores in your liver and in your muscle tissue. And when you deplete that, you start to switch to only metabolizing fat, both when you are just static and that's what, or just hanging out, which is what you do anyways, but also when you work out because you don't have any sugar stores. And so I'd always do my workout typically fasted and then eat. There's not necessarily a benefit to working out fasted, but your body starts to go into a little bit of a flight or fight mode, and you actually have this like feeling of increased perception. And anyways, I really enjoyed it. Your body also starts going through a process, which it does generally, but it increases the rate of autophagy, which is basically when your cells break down and recycle themselves. And we'll get up a proper definition just so we're not spreading fake news here. So cellular process where damaged or unnecessary components are broken down and recycled. See, that was pretty close. It's a self-eating mechanism that helps cells maintain homeostasis and can be induced through fasting, calorie restriction, or exercises. It plays a role in various health processes, including clearing waste, protecting against disease, and potentially contributing to longevity. And so it's somewhat unintuitive because you're thinking, oh, I need to eat to sustain myself. So why would fasting be good for longevity? Well, if you were listening to that definition, the cells that typically are recycled or eat themselves first are the cells that are weaker or not as strong or could be infected with a virus or disease or whatever. And so those cells that are weaker are the ones to die first or eat themselves first. And so there have been a lot of studies that show potential benefits in reducing risk of cancer, which is huge, and that sort of thing. So, and that can start even just a little bit with intermittent fasting. Now, with regular fasting, it improves metabolic health. So at about 24 hours, your body goes into this state called ketosis. And ketosis is awesome. And basically it's a metabolic state where your body is using like a certain version of these fat metabolites instead of carbohydrates. And you can be in ketosis, not in fasting. That's actually what keto is. The keto diet puts you in a state of ketosis because you're eating mostly fat and protein and not carbohydrate. And the reason why people lose a lot of weight on ketosis is not because of ketosis is this magical weight loss diet. It's just because it's highly restrictive and people just tend to eat less. But anyways, when you produce these ketone bodies, it's an alternative fuel source that your brain uses. And I don't know, you can look it up, but it's a process that your body goes through that has multiple benefits. It can help you improve your blood sugar. It can help you improve your blood pressure. Some people do go through like a keto flu, which is basically like a withdrawal from carbohydrate. And so if you're used to, consuming an excess amount of carbohydrate, that could be something you experience. Again, this is nothing you have to do. I'm just telling you why I do it. And so, it helps, especially. So if you have diabetes, it can really help enhance insulin sensitivity, reduce the risk of type 2 diabetes, promote fat oxidation, and help manage body comp by tapping into your fat stores consistently. We talked about autophagy and cellular repair. So it'll clean out the damaged components, the weak cells will die, that sort of thing. There are cognitive benefits, which I feel right now. So you do feel slightly more alert, and then your brain is also running off of these ketones, which is just a clean energy source for the brain. And it also increases brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which increases or supports neuroplasticity, and it can basically help you actually remember and learn things a little bit better. Which I think the argument there is like, well, why would you remember things better in a fasted state? Well, if you're looking, back in the day, caveman times, if you're looking for food and it's scarce, being able to remember where things are, remembering certain trails, remembering where certain animals sleep, that sort of thing. It's beneficial to have that increase when you're in a state of lacking, when there is no food around. So as like a survival mechanism. And so and that's at least one train of thought with regards to why that happens. Obviously, it can be a measure of discipline. It's a great way to test mental fortitude. I don't know if I would necessarily advocate for that. However, that is one of the reasons I do it as well. So it's not hypocritical because even though that is something I do for myself, there are other ways to be disciplined. You don't have to fast to demonstrate being disciplined. It's just something I do and I get something out of it. So you could as well, but it just depends. Like, again, it's probably best if you consult a doctor, depending on the length of the fast. 24 hours you could probably knock out. Fasting can also lower triglycerides, improve your cholesterol. I already talked about reducing blood pressure. And so all of those things are precursors to heart disease. And so reducing all of that is a good thing. And the past couple of years when I've gone to the doctor, I haven't had high blood pressure or hypertension, but it's kind of creeping on pre. And guys, I eat well. I could probably eat a little bit more vegetables, but I eat well. I have a low body fat percentage. I work out 4 to 7 times a week. I do all the things, and my dad has a little bit of high blood pressure. He takes medicine for it, so it's probably genetic. But all that to be said, a fast here and there, if it can help reduce my blood pressure a little bit, I'm good with that. And then so all those things combined, can help with increased longevity. And so if you're reducing chronic disease, whether it's diabetes or heart disease through fasting, then, you're not just living longer, but you're also going to increase your health span as well. And so that's sort of some of my reasoning for doing this fast. I also hadn't done it in a while, and I had been throwing the idea around in my head and kind of been avoiding it. And eventually it's like, all right, stop avoiding it. It's not going to be that bad. And it's not. It's really not. If you want to give it a shot, I would recommend first starting with intermittent fasting. So start with the 8-hour window of feeding. Common one is 10 to 6, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. You can do 9 to 5, whatever. And then from there, give it a go with 24 hours, see how you do with that. I think it helps, if you want to eat on like a Sunday and then not eat until the next Monday night, half the time you're asleep anyways, because you go to bed. So it's really just making it through one waking day, and then, 36 hours from there, and, build up to it if you want, or don't. Obviously fasting can be triggering for folks who have had eating disorders in the past. So I get that. Like, this is definitely not for everybody. I'm just sharing it because that is something that I do and have done and am going through right now. And it's just a part of, it's just something that I incorporate semi-regularly, once a quarter, although it's probably been over a year since I've done it. For a while, I was doing it pretty regularly. I mean, like I said, I was doing the 24-hour fast weekly. And then I was probably doing 2 or 3 days. Again, I can't remember what my longest fast is, but definitely 2 days every 3 months or so. And that's just to help with all the things that we talked about. And I like a good challenge, and it's really not too bad. I wouldn't even say I feel hungry right now. My stomach just feels like kind of tight, and I just feel very alert and ready to go. So it's cool. And I worked out yesterday, all good. I did my 14,000 meters up in the rower today. And if I don't eat tonight, which I probably will, but if I don't eat tonight, then I'll still do my pull-ups and my jog and all of that tomorrow. And it'll all be good. So yeah, that's my thing on fasting. And I think that'll about wrap it up for today. So gearing up, in summary, the main takeaways, we're gearing up. We're going to be doing some fundraising. If you fundraised last year, I will be reaching out to you. If you haven't done any fundraising or weren't able to donate last year, I'm going to have my link to donate in my link tree on both the Fowler and Friends Instagram and my personal Instagram. And so that will be good. So you can go on the link tree, donate as much as you can. And that'll be that. So yeah, please help me out on that goal. And that's that, folks. Thank you so much. I'll catch you on the next one. Later. What's up, everybody? It's Jake here, Fowler and Friends. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. It really means a lot to me and all of us over here at Fowler and Friends. So if you could please like, subscribe, comment, do all of that, but definitely subscribe, share the videos with your friends, and keep on supporting the channel. Thank you so much. We'll catch you on the next one. Later.